I should have known moving into an HOA neighborhood was a mistake, but when I bought this house, I didn't have much choice. It had been in my family for generations. A beautiful, historic home that stood tall for over a century, its craftsmanship unmatched by anything built today. Yet none of that mattered to Karen, the self-proclaimed queen of our HOA, who saw my house as nothing more than an eyesore standing in the way of her precious modern aesthetic. From the moment I moved in, she made it clear I wasn't welcome. It started with passive-aggressive letters stuffed into my mailbox, obscure violations like my porch lights being too vintage, my mailbox non-compliant, and even my front door color clashing with the so-called neighborhood theme. At first, I ignored her. After all, I had bigger things to worry about than some power-tripping suburban dictator. But Karen didn't like being ignored. One morning, I woke up to find a neon orange violation notice taped to my door. Mandatory structural improvements required, non-compliant property. The absurd list of demands followed. Replace classic wooden windows with bland plastic ones, repaint the house in neighborhood-approved soft taupe, and remove the original wrought iron fence that had stood proudly for over 100 years. Failure to comply? A fine of $500 per day. Furious, I stormed down to the HOA office. "This is insane," I told Karen, who sat smugly behind her desk. "You can't force me to gut my home just because it doesn't fit your ridiculous vision." She barely glanced up from her paperwork. "It's all in the guidelines. If you don't comply, the HOA has the right to take corrective action." That's when I realized Karen wasn't just annoying. She was dangerous. She genuinely believed she had the power to dictate what I could do with my property, and I had no doubt she'd go to extreme lengths to enforce her will. Over the next few weeks, the harassment escalated. Karen sent landscapers to hack down my hedges into ugly stumps. Noise complaints poured in every time I used my lawnmower. Then came anonymous reports to the city claiming safety violations on my property. I spent countless hours proving my home was structurally sound and up to code. But one morning, I woke up to something far worse: a bulldozer parked in front of my house. At first, I thought it was a mistake. But stepping outside, I saw Karen standing beside a group of men in hard hats, clipboard in hand, watching like a queen overseeing her subjects. "Good, you're up," she said, smiling. "We're finally dealing with this safety hazard." My stomach dropped. "You can't be serious." Her laugh was condescending. "Oh, but I am. You were given multiple notices to comply with HOA standards. Since you refused, we're taking action. This dump is coming down today." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "This is my house, Karen. You don't have the authority to demolish it." Karen held up a document, waving it like a golden ticket. "Actually, I do. According to HOA bylaws, if a property is deemed a blight to the community and remains non-compliant, the HOA can remove it." I grabbed the paper from her hand. Scanning it, I realized it was a complete fraud, a fabricated document with no legal standing. But Karen had the bulldozer, the crew, and enough arrogance to think she could get away with it. I had to act fast. Pulling out my phone, I started recording. "You're trespassing on my property. If you so much as touch a single brick of my house, I'll have you arrested for destruction of private property." Karen's smile faltered for the first time. "You're the one breaking the law. This structure is a hazard, and we're doing what's best for the neighborhood." I turned my camera to the bulldozer operator. "You touch this house, and you'll be personally liable for damages. This isn't legal." The operator hesitated, glancing between me and Karen. "Look, lady," he said, "we don't usually do demolitions on occupied homes." "It's not occupied," Karen snapped. "It's an illegal structure, Just do your job." I stepped forward, holding up laminated permits I'd carried since Karen began her campaign of harassment. "Buddy, you so much as touch this house, and you'll be in court for the rest of your life. This is private property, and this lunatic has absolutely no legal authority to order a demolition." Karen let out an exaggerated laugh. "Oh, please. The HOA has every right to enforce neighborhood compliance. We have legal precedent." I turned my phone toward the operator again, my voice steady. "I have documented proof that this house is legally protected. The city issued me permits. Tear this house down, and you're not just destroying private property, you're committing a felony." The operator hesitated, then shifted uncomfortably. "You got permits?" I handed him the documents. He scanned them, his brow furrowing. Karen shook her head. "That doesn't matter. Those are just papers. The HOA rules override any city nonsense." The operator looked at her, his expression souring. "Lady, I don't know what kind of power trip you're on, but I'm not about to bulldoze a house with active city permits. I'm not losing my job over this." Karen's face twisted in anger. "Do you know who you're talking to? I have connections. You think you're going to work in this town again after disobeying my orders?" The operator snorted. "Lady, I don't work for you. I work for the company that pays me, and I'm not wrecking a house when the owner is standing right here with legal paperwork." Karen's confidence cracked. Turning to the rest of the crew, she snapped, "Fine. If these idiots won't do their jobs, I'll do it myself." Before I could react, she grabbed a crowbar from one of the toolboxes and marched up my front steps, rage burning in her eyes. "If this house won't come down today, then I'll start the job myself." The sound of the crowbar slamming into my front door sent fury coursing through me. Pressing emergency dial on my phone, I put it on speaker. 911, what's your emergency? "Yes, I need officers dispatched immediately. There's a woman actively trying to destroy my home with a construction crew present." Karen froze, wide-eyed, as if realizing she'd crossed a line she couldn't uncross. "You can't call the cops on me. I'm the one enforcing the law." "The only thing you're enforcing is your own insanity," I shot back, stepping between her and my house. "Now get off my property before you make things worse for yourself." Her grip tightened on the crowbar, her face turning an ugly shade of red. "You don't get it. You're ruining everything. This neighborhood was perfect until you came along." The distant wail of sirens made her flinch. The construction crew exchanged nervous glances, and the bulldozer operator quickly hopped out of his machine, wanting no part of what was about to unfold. Moments later, a squad car screeched to a stop in front of my house. Two officers stepped out, hands resting on their holsters as they took in the scene. One of them, a tall, no-nonsense guy with a buzz cut, pointed at Karen. "Ma'am, put the crowbar down." Karen hesitated. "You don't understand. This man is breaking HOA rules. He's refusing to comply." The officer's expression didn't change. "Ma'am, put the crowbar down and step away from the house." Her hands trembled, but she finally dropped the metal tool with a loud clang. Her eyes darted between me and the officers, her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. "I was just trying to do what was right for the community." The officer glanced at me. "Can you explain what's going on here?" I gestured at the bulldozer, the abandoned construction crew, and the chaos surrounding us. "This woman illegally ordered my house to be demolished. I have legal documents proving my property is protected. She's been harassing me for weeks, and today she escalated to destruction of property." The officer nodded slowly before turning to Karen. "Ma'am, do you have any legal documentation proving your right to enforce this demolition?" Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. She was trapped, her perfect little scheme crumbling in real time. "Ma'am," the officer said, pulling out his handcuffs, "you're under arrest for attempted property destruction and trespassing." Karen shrieked, "No, you can't do this. I run this neighborhood. He's the criminal, not me." But it didn't matter. As the cuffs clicked around her wrists, reality finally set in. And the real twist? It was coming soon. Karen had no idea that my house wasn't just legally protected, it was a historical landmark. She had just committed a crime that would cost her everything. As Karen sat in the back of the squad car, her face twisted in shock, the neighborhood queen bee, the self-proclaimed ruler of the HOA, was now in handcuffs on the curb in front of my house. But the best part, she had no idea how deep a hole she'd dug for herself. The officer turned back to me. "We'll need to take your statement and collect evidence. Do you have security footage of the incident?" I nodded, barely able to contain my grin. "I have multiple cameras. Everything from her ordering the demolition crew to her attacking my door with a crowbar. It's all on tape." Karen's eyes widened. "You were recording me?" she screeched, thrashing in the back seat. "That's illegal." "No, ma'am, it's not," the officer cut her off, his voice calm but firm. "And from what I'm seeing here, you've not only trespassed, but attempted felony property damage." Karen's face drained of color. Stammering, she tried to come up with another excuse, but she'd already lost. "Actually, officer," I said, pulling out one final document, "there's one more thing she should know. This house isn't just protected by the city. It's an officially registered historical landmark." Silence. Karen blinked rapidly, her mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. That's not possible. It's just an old house." "Nope," I said, enjoying every second of her meltdown. "This house has been in my family for generations, and it was designated as a landmark 5 years ago. You know what that means?" The officer exhaled sharply. "It means any attempt to alter or demolish this property without approval is a serious crime." Karen jerked against the cuffs. No, this is a mistake. The HOA has rules." "The HOA doesn't override federal and state law," the officer said dryly. "And considering you just attempted to destroy a protected landmark, you're looking at much more than a simple trespassing charge." At that moment, one of the construction crew members nervously stepped forward. I just want to say we had no idea she told us she had legal authority. We don't want to be involved in this." The officer nodded. "You're free to go, but we'll need your statements later." Karen had gone completely pale, her entire plan crumbling in front of her. "Please," she whimpered. "I didn't know. I was just trying to make the neighborhood better. By illegally demolishing someone's home?" I raised an eyebrow. "Nice try, Karen," the officer said, shutting the squad car door. "We'll be forwarding everything to the district attorney. Given the historical status of this property, expect some serious charges." As the squad car pulled away, I turned to see the other neighbors peeking out from their windows and porches. Some looked horrified, others clearly entertained. Just as I was about to head inside, the current HOA president, who Karen had never actually been, though she acted like it, walked up to me. "I just wanted to say," she said, rubbing her temples, "we had no idea she was pulling this. She always acted like she ran the place, but we never authorized any of this." "Yeah," I said, glancing at where the squad car had disappeared down the road. "Well, it looks like you won't have to deal with her anymore." The president sighed. "Honestly, thank God." With Karen gone, my house stood tall, untouched, and more protected than ever. I stepped onto my porch, taking one last look at the chaos she had caused, and smiled. The neighborhood just got a whole lot quieter, and a lot less crazy.